Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. Typically I'm out doing some vlogging or some like POV street photography stuff, so I'm usually out and about doing my videos. Today I'm actually just sitting at my editing station and I'm going to be reviewing a plugin today for DaVinci Resolve. It's called Dehancer. I think it's a great plugin, so we're going to talk all about it. But before we do that, I want to share some news with you guys. I mentioned it on my last video, so if you watched that, you may have heard already, but my family and I have moved up to the state of Michigan. And part of that move is I've shifted careers here, so I am in full-time video making and photography. So I'm working for a company in the town that we moved to doing videography and photography. We do promo videos and documentaries, and then I'm also doing clients on my own that's much more documentary and story driven. So my job is almost entirely video right now, as well as some photography mixed in, which works out really well because Dehancer, they reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in reviewing this plugin? And what the plugin does is it is a film simulation plugin. So you can go in, you can select film stocks, and you can select what camera you were using, whether you were shooting in log or not. You can tell it what film you want it to look like, what film stock you want to simulate, and then on top of that you can do some differentiating things. You can add film grain, you can just basically do any type of manipulation that you want to create sort of that film look for your videos. It's an awesome plugin, and so we are going to talk all about it. I've been working on a documentary for the past 2 months on Mexican rodeos. In the middle of the documentary, Dehancer reached out to me and sent me a copy of the plugin, and I've been using it on the documentary because it lends itself to a film look. The Mexican rodeo is sort of drawing back to all these like cultural heritage type things, and a film look just really fits well for this style video that I'm doing. So I've been loving this Dehancer program, and I can say that they have asked me to review it honestly. They haven't asked me to only say good things. They want my honest opinion. So today's video is going to be an honest review of Dehancer Pro. Let's go ahead and check it out. Alright, so here we are in DaVinci Resolve. I've got most of my documentary here is done in terms of editing and sound and that kind of stuff, but I haven't done any color grading yet. So this plugin works best if you don't color grade anything to start with. You just start with a blank slate. But here we have our shots. The shots really come through in this intro sequence. So we'll start there. We got this shot right here. So just kind of a slow kind of fade in with this guy with the hat. Looks pretty cool. Basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go here and go over to the effects. Now, assuming you've installed this correctly, you go to your open effects section in DaVinci, scroll all the way down, and you'll see film emulation. Under that category is the Dehancer Pro plugin. I'm gonna take it, and you actually have to drag it onto the clip that you want to use it on. So there you go. Now, one thing that I've noticed with this is as soon as you apply this effect, it significantly slows down your footage, makes it kind of jumpy, makes it harder to work with. So I would suggest applying the effect to everything after you're done with your final edit. So right now, I'm not a huge fan of this default look that it provided for me. You can go over here to effects, and you can edit all the things in Dehancer Pro, and as you can see, there's just a ton of parameters. You know, input, film, expand, print, color head, film grain, halation, bloom, vignetting, film breadth, gate weave, false color, output, LUT generator. Yeah, it's insane the amount of stuff that's in this one plugin. I'm gonna go through and just show you like how I would use it. So to start with, you can select your source here. If you've got your stuff set at Rec 709, you can just go from that, or if you want to choose your specific camera, you can select your camera. So I shot this on the Fujifilm X-T3. So Fujifilm X-T3, and interestingly enough, X-T3 is the only option that's available in Dehancer. I wonder if there's... Yeah, so it looks like Pocket Cinema 4K. What do they have at Sony? A7 III, A7R III. They don't have the A7S III. So, right off the bat, like, it looks like right now it is a little bit limited in your camera selection. But thankfully, my camera is here. The only downside is I did not shoot in F-Log. So for this particular documentary, I shot all in the Fujifilm Eterna profile, which is like their cinematic film simulation. I love that profile, and it just makes everything easier on the back end. So right now, as you can see, if I say that I shot in a log profile, it's gonna make everything just look crazy, and that's not what I want. So I think what I'm gonna do is we're just gonna say Rec 709. You can see the difference. It's not making things crazy, it's definitely just giving it a look. That's probably all I need to do. I don't need to differentiate anything right now. Now, the next section is your film section. This is the section that's gonna make the biggest difference. So right now it's set to Kodak Vision 3 250D, and as you can see, like, there is seemingly no end to the amount of film simulations they have on here. I mean, this is a crazy amount of film simulations. Honestly, I don't even know what half of these are. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of play around a little bit. I'm gonna maybe try this Fuji Eterna Vivid. I mean, I know I shot in the Eterna profile, but let's see what this does. Wow, okay, so that's a pretty good look. You can see, so this is the Eterna profile baked into Fujifilm, and then as soon as I add this, you can see some grain that gets added in. Contrast goes down a bit. Some of the colors just get kind of softened. So one thing I like is it takes out some of that green. And for this film that I'm making, it's sort of a desert kind of look. It's a Mexican rodeo, it's dirt, it's browns, it's tans in the hats and earth tones and that kind of stuff. Green, honestly, for this documentary, I'm taking out a lot of green because I don't think that it fits the look very well. So I actually do like this. Now, once you get a film profile selected, you can, enable it or disable it. You could just keep the grain if you want, and not actually have the profile come from it. For now, though, let's look at these film profiles. Eterna, it's pretty cool. I'll probably stick with that, but we'll see what else there is. That's a little too blue and green for me. That is very warm. Fuji Provia. Velvia is a little too blue and green. Velvia 50 is warmer. Fuji Color. They do have like Kodak Portra in here, I know, which I know is a big hit for a lot of people. So Portra 400. A lot of saturation comes out of that. Let's try Portra 800. Same thing, just darker. And then with it, you can tell it the amount that you want it to like push or pull. So if you're down here, it's going to be a little more intense than if you're kind of up this way. It darkens it out. See. Anyway, so there's some black and white ones, sepia. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the Fuji Eterna. It just makes sense. I shot it in the Eterna profile. Adding that film simulation on there makes sense. Now, expand, you can bring up your black point and white point, which is really cool. So if you want to kind of make it a little more, faded, bring up your black point a little bit, bring it back down for some more contrast. Same thing with your white point. You can blow out your highlights if you want, or just bring it back down. So that's actually really nice because if the film simulation affects your exposure at all, you can just go here and kind of bring it back to where you need it without even having to go into DaVinci's color grading system over here. So now we'll come down, print, you get like your actual like total exposure, which is kind of cool. I don't know if I need to mess with it much. I think it looked pretty good where it was at. Maybe bring it down a hair, give it a little more contrast. And then you have your total contrast, which is cool. You could go way faded or way contrasty. I'm gonna let that sit a little bit higher on the contrasted side. Total density, it almost looks like it's affecting the saturation, but and then you do have your actual saturation. So you could take any film simulation and then just bring the sat down and make it black and white if you wanted to. Then you have your actual section where you can look at color. You can bring your yellows in more, your blues in more, and then your blend between magenta and green, and then your cyan and red. So you can link them all together. That gang thing seems to link them all together. So then you're just basically adjusting your tint. I might take this green magenta slider and just like ever so slightly bring down the greens. Let's disable that real quick. Yeah, so there's the regular greens, and then there's enabled. Just looks a little more like deserty, a little more like hot in the sun, Mexico kind of feel. Then you get your film grain down here, which is, I mean, this is honestly like the ticket to everything. Like, so before I got this plug-in, I started working on this documentary, and I wanted to add in some film grain to some of these sections here. So right here I was doing some like telling the story of Mexican rodeo, and so what I did was I took this free film grain that you can bring in, and all it does is it looks like this. And then here, I'll take this off so you can see what that's all it looks like. But then if you set your blending to overlay, then it goes on top of your footage and just kind of gives it some film grain. And then you can adjust the amount of film grain with the opacity. But it's honestly a lot of work to do that, and you can't really control the film grain that well. So this plugin makes things a lot easier, because I can literally just go in, if I want to add film grain, go back over here and let's find it, film grain. I can control the size of it, the amount of it. Then you can adjust how much grain goes into your shadows, your midtones, and your highlights, which I think is just absolutely incredible. So it doesn't just look like a sort of generic overlay. It actually makes it look like, there's a difference in what you're shooting, maybe that you actually did shoot on film. So what I'm gonna do for this one is I'm gonna bring the size up just a hair. I don't want a lot of it. I'm gonna bring the amount in just a little bit, and bring the resolution up. I don't need a low resolution. I just want to give it like a little bit of sparkle, Now let's look at midtones here. Okay, so you can see like in the hand, the midtone slider is really affecting that hand. So you can have a lot of grain in the hand. The shadows slider is definitely affecting, like the collar here, his hairline, the fence down there. Kind of makes it seem like the contrast goes away. Everything that's in the background gets kind of blurred out with the shadows one too. So, and then you have highlights, which obviously is crazy. So what I'm gonna do is, since the image on its own kind of looked a little bit blown out, I'm gonna bring more grain into the highlights. It gives me a little more clarity around the brim of his hat. Bring it down in the shadows, down in the midtones, and that looks really, really cool to me, because this guy's head, his hat, it all looks pretty clean. The rail looks clean, his hand looks pretty clean. But then as you get closer to the background, you can see that grain and that kind of like filmic quality, which is cool. So no film grain at all, film grain. Halation, I'm not sure what halation is. Maybe it's like you can make it look like you push the ISO in the background or something. Smoothness, a little bit of fusion. Maybe someone who's used this plugin can jump in the comments and tell me what in the world this is doing. But I'm gonna disable it for now because I don't know what I'm doing. All right, and then bloom. I'm not gonna use bloom. You can imagine what it would do. It just, you know, makes everything kind of look like it's, in my opinion, overexposed. I don't like bloom effects, so it's cool that you can do that if you wanted it. You know, think like Lord of the Rings closing scene. Frodo's greeting everybody again. It's kind of dreamlike, you know, he's waking up from his long sleep. You can create that bloom effect with that. I love that you can do, I'm not gonna do any bloom. I love that you can do a vignette. So that's just super nice to have that built into the plugin. It just makes kind of all your simple things all there in one place. It's not just a film grain plugin. It's literally like just you're tweaking your image, and you can do it all in this plugin. That's what I love about it. So vignette, you can bring down the exposure on it. Let's enable it first. You know, you can make it like a real dark edges, feather it less or more. I mean, you can do a completely hard circle if you want. Let's bring the size down, or the size up rather. Try to just get it in the corners. Aspect ratio. Oh, that's cool. So you can actually change the shape of your oval. So let's do something like this. Feather it a little more. Yeah. It's just kind of subtle. But yeah, like right there, you know, the corners are kind of exposed. But if you enable that vignette, it just kind of like centers your focus in on the important part of the image. And a lot of older, you know, lenses had quite a bit of vignetting, so it makes sense that if you wanted to make it look like you were shooting on film, you're probably shooting with an older lens, and it makes sense to have that as part of your film simulation. So I like that. Film breath. I'm not sure what film breath is. Doesn't seem to affect my image much. So definitely a subtle effect. I'm not gonna worry about it right now. Gate weave. Oh, this might be like a motion effect. So let's see what that does here. It's the effect by itself. And then if we enable gate weave, let's see what that does. Yeah, I'm not sure. Gate weave. Not sure what that does. It does seem to make it move a little bit though. False color, don't need that. Obviously, if you're trying to like monitor or meter something and figure out what's going on with your color, you can use it then. But that would never be an actual applicable effect. And then output, you can. This is really cool. This is just like your total output of like how much of the effect you want applied to your image. So you can say there's nothing. That was my original image right there. It'd be like basically the same as just turning off this Dehancer plugin. So that's my original shot. Bring this in, and then you can just affect it with your film and your vignette and all this stuff. So I like what I've done. I think it makes it look better. The only thing I worry about is we lose some clarity in the brim of the hat here based on what I've done. So I could either go back up here and say that I want to bring my overall exposure down. I could do that. Try to get some clarity back in that, but I like where the exposure was. So what I'm gonna do instead is just use this output here and just bring the simulation down a little bit. So like there's none of it. There's like 74%, 100%, 74%. So just really subtle, you know? I like subtlety better than just sort of overloading effects. So I think I'm gonna go like 77, 77, 80, maybe 75%. I like that. LUT generator, I think what you can do is you can take all your settings here and then you can say, let's export this as a LUT. I don't know why it's not letting me do that right now. but it seems like that's what it's meant for. I don't have to worry about doing that. What I can do is I can take, you know, on similar shots, I can just copy here, and then like for this next shot, here's the next shot. I love this shot, by the way. I think it's really cool. Filmed by Matthew Wagner. He's doing the slide stop on the horse. What I can do is just paste attributes, and then you can paste your stuff from your effects. So plugins, yeah, just make sure that plugin box is checked. What I'm gonna do is just check plugins, apply that, and then you've got the exact same film grain that I put in the film simulation that I put on this one. So ideally these two shots should match up really well. Yeah, so then the next shot, this guy's over here grabbing the cow. Let's paste attributes. Let's do that again. Yeah. So this definitely is starting to get that vibe that I want. Let's do that again, paste attributes. Yep. It's a nice warm kind of, I don't know, 70s, 80s film vibe going on. What I wanted to do with the documentary was kind of make it feel as though it's sort of pointing back to a different period in time, because that's what the Mexican rodeo actually does, is all the events in it point back to a time before sort of modern ranching took over. So all these kind of bring back heritage, and that's what I wanted to make it feel like. So, you know, if you're doing different filmmaking projects, there's definitely a time and a place to use film simulation and to use film grain. And when you know that you need it, it can make all the world of difference. But it's not something that you want to just use on every project and, you know, overuse. If you're doing a slick, like, corporate real estate shoot, you probably don't want to use a bunch of film grain. But for those times that you need it, man, this Dehancer plugin, like, it just is awesome. That plus, like, shooting Fujifilm, I feel like it was just made for this. So let's paste those. Do it on here too. This lady was awesome. She was cooking some amazing food for us. I'm not sure I like what it did to that particular shot, but anyway. Now, as you can see, I'm gonna try to play this back. This is just a regular shot here, and then when it switches right here to the film simulation, I mean, I'm running an M1 Mac with plenty of RAM, and it definitely just, I mean, it can't handle the actual footage. I'll have to probably, like, make some proxies for it or render it in place or something, because it's not wanting to do it. So I would say that's definitely a negative of the plugin, is like you're gonna need quite a bit of system processing power to be able to do it. But you know, if you edit before you put that final effect on, and then you just go in and put it on at the end and then export, you shouldn't have any problems. So there's that sequence. Yeah, definitely makes it hard to edit. What I'll do is, just before I go here, so you guys can see this sequence of how it's actually supposed to be, I'm gonna go in and just disable all these real quick. Alright, so this is what the intro sequence actually is supposed to look like.
Yo voy a cantar esta canción para mi gente.
Yeah, so as you can see, like once all those effects are applied to those clips, I mean that intro is gonna look just really cool. It already looks cool, but it's gonna look even better once I apply all that film grain. And Dehancer, I mean, man, they've helped me accomplish this. I love film simulation. I love film grain. I love being able to put that into my projects that need it. You know, I've done workarounds in the past, and I'm no longer gonna have to do any of those workarounds because Dehancer is just gonna make it 20 times easier. It's also gonna, you know, help me not have to just like do stupid stuff like take this small clip of film grain, paste it over top of each other forever endlessly in a project. So it lets me actually just embed it into my clips while I'm, you know, color grading and all this stuff together. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I think it's a great piece of software. I love DaVinci Resolve, and I love that it just pairs with it. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching the video. Hopefully that detailed kind of walkthrough of the plugin was helpful to you. If you're thinking about purchasing it or checking it out, you can head to Dehancer.com to buy the plugin. I believe it's $300 right now, which seems kind of hefty, and there are workarounds if you don't want to use it, but I'll say the plugin just makes it a lot easier to have all of your sort of vintage film look options all in one place, including your vignette, including overall exposure, your grain, your film stock simulation. You can even change color in it. So I mean, you're getting some color grading features, you're getting some just basic image altering features, and then you're also getting the film simulation. I think it's awesome. I think it's a great software. The only negatives that I would say is that it takes a lot of system processing to watch your playback when the effect is applied to a clip. So that's kind of a bummer. It'd be cool to be able to edit it more with the effect in place so that I can, you know, kind of get a better idea of what I'm doing. But that's pretty simple. You just wait till the end to do that before you export, and then or just, you know, buy the world's greatest computer. And the only other negative I would say is maybe the price point. Seems a little hefty to me, but you can always try it out on their website for I think it's a 2-week demo that you get, so you can always try it out and see if it's worth it to you. I would say definitely if you're doing any kind of documentary work that kind of harkens back to other eras and you don't have actual footage from that era and you want to sort of create that memory filmic look, I mean, this is the easiest way to do it, hands down. So if you're in DaVinci Resolve and you need that look, you're doing, you know, film work that requires of it, I would say absolutely go for it. I've loved working with the software. If you don't think you're going to use the, you know, the film stock look that much, or if you're okay with just doing kind of other different ways, other workarounds to achieve it, then maybe don't go for it. But for me, you know, I would buy this even if I wasn't reviewing it, just because the amount that I need this type of image altering in my work. I think it just makes it easy, it makes it straightforward, and I'm super excited to see it used on this final product for this documentary that I've been working on. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope you found this review helpful. Go check out Dehancer.com, check out the Dehancer plugin, get a free trial, try it out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you not like it? You know, what are some interesting things you found in it? I'd love to hear all of your ideas as well. I appreciate you guys watching and tuning into the channel. We'll see you guys next week for another video.